The champagne tasted like betrayal, but maybe that was just me projecting. I stood in the corner of the Hilton atrium, watching my wife Clara work the room like she owned it, which technically she did now. Her new law firm's opening gala was in full swing, and every power player in Portland had shown up to kiss the ring of Judge Harrington's precious daughter. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The test-run husband is here, I heard some junior associate whisper to her friend near the bar. They both giggled, not bothering to lower their voices. Nice to know I'm the crash test dummy for midlife crises. I adjusted my tie and took another sip of the overpriced champagne. 43 years old, and I'd just learned my role in life was apparently to bankroll my wife's dreams until she found someone more exciting to share them with. The someone in question was currently standing way too close to Clara by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. Victor Cross. Business partner, co-founder of Harrington & Cross Legal Services, and, if the heated text messages I'd accidentally seen on Clara's phone were any indication, the reason my wife had been working so many late nights lately. Victor had the kind of manufactured charm that worked on people who didn't look too closely. Expensive suit, perfect teeth, silver at his temples that probably cost more to maintain than most people's car payments. He was everything I wasn't, flashy, smooth-talking, and apparently irresistible to women who'd grown bored with their stable, successful husbands. "Ethan," Sam Dale materialized beside me with the predatory smile she'd perfected during her years as Clara's best friend and now associate. "You must be so proud. Not many men could bankroll a whole firm just to watch their wives spread their wings." The way she emphasized "spread their wings" made it clear she knew exactly what kind of spreading was going on. Sam had always been a vicious gossip, but tonight there was something different in her tone, something that suggested she was in on whatever game Clara and Victor were playing. "Funny," I said, keeping my voice level. "I was just thinking about investments and returns. Some pay off, others—" I gestured vaguely toward Clara and Victor, who were now laughing at something he'd whispered in her ear. "Well, let's just say I'm reconsidering my portfolio." Sam's smile faltered slightly. "What do you mean?" But I was already walking away, pulling out my phone as I headed for the exit. The night air hit my face like a slap, clearing away the fog of expensive perfume and false congratulations that had been choking me inside. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. David Chen, my lawyer, and one of the few people in this city who didn't owe Judge Harrington any favors. "David, it's Ethan Parrish. I need you to do something for me first thing Monday morning." I paused, watching through the windows as Clara threw her head back in laughter at something Victor had said. "I want you to pull my investment from Harrington & Cross, all of it, $20 million. There was a long pause on the other end. "Ethan, are you sure? That's going to cause some serious problems for—" "That's the point," I said, ending the call. I stood there for another moment, watching my wife of 15 years play her new role as the sophisticated lawyer who'd outgrown her boring husband. She looked beautiful in her black cocktail dress, the one I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. The one she'd worn to celebrate building something that was supposed to be ours but had somehow become theirs. Tomorrow, Clara would wake up thinking she had everything under control. Her successful new firm, her exciting new lover, and a husband too comfortable and complacent to rock the boat. She was about to learn how wrong she could be. Monday morning came with the kind of gray drizzle that made Portland look like a crime scene waiting to happen. I was sitting in my home office, coffee growing cold, as I stared at Clara's work phone, the one she thought she'd hidden so cleverly in her gym bag. It had taken me exactly 30 seconds to guess her passcode. Our anniversary date. The irony wasn't lost on me. The text messages painted a picture that would have been laughable if it wasn't so pathetic. Victor's messages read like bad romance novel dialogue. "Can't wait to feel you beneath me again, and your husband has no idea what he's missing." Clara's responses were worse. Breathless, desperate, the digital equivalent of a schoolgirl crush. But it was the photos that really drove the knife home. Clara in Victor's penthouse apartment, wearing lingerie I'd never seen. Clara in his car, her hand on his thigh. Clara in what looked like a hotel room, smiling at the camera with a satisfaction I hadn't seen on her face in years. I scrolled through the messages methodically, taking screenshots and forwarding them to a secure email account. The timestamps told their own story: lunch meetings that ran until evening, weekend strategy sessions, late-night calls that had nothing to do with legal briefs. The Find My iPhone app showed Victor's current location, his downtown office, probably preparing for the chaos that was about to rain down on Harrington and Cross when my withdrawal hit their accounts. My phone buzzed. A text from Clara. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up." I almost laughed. Even now, with her world about to implode, she was still lying. According to her phone's location history, her late work nights had been taking place at Victor's penthouse. I needed more information, and I knew exactly where to get it. Mick's Tavern sat in the old part of downtown, the kind of place where construction workers rubbed shoulders with off-duty cops and the occasional lawyer looking to slum it. Mick Rivers had been my friend since college, back when we both thought we'd change the world. He'd become a firefighter instead, then transitioned into private security after a back injury ended his rescue days. Now he ran the bar and collected gossip like other people collected stamps. "Well, look what the cat dragged in," Mick said as I slid onto a bar stool. He was polishing glasses with the kind of methodical precision that suggested he'd been waiting for me to show up. "Heard you made quite an exit from your wife's party the other night. News travels fast. Faster when it involves Judge Harrington's daughter and her fancy new law firm." He set a beer in front of me without being asked. "You want to talk about it, or are we going to pretend you're here for my sparkling personality?" "What have you heard?" Mick leaned against the bar, lowering his voice. "Half the town knows Clara's been playing lawyer with benefits. The other half is pretending they don't know because they're scared of her old man." "How long?" 6 months, maybe more. Victor's not exactly subtle. Been bragging about his partnership with the judge's daughter to anyone who'll listen. Mick's expression darkened. "Guy's a real piece of work, Ethan. This isn't his first rodeo." "What do you mean?" "Remember that development deal that went south last year? The one where a bunch of investors lost their shirts? Victor was the money guy behind that. He's got a talent for finding people with deep pockets and flexible morals." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Are you saying Clara's in business with a con man?" "I'm saying Victor Cross has a pattern. He finds successful women, charms his way into their beds and their bank accounts, then disappears when things get complicated." Mick refilled my beer. "Word is he's got his eye on something bigger than just a law firm." Before I could ask what he meant, my phone rang. David Chen. "Ethan, we have a problem," my lawyer said without preamble. "I pulled your investment like you asked, but there's something you need to know. Victor Cross has been using Harrington and Cross as collateral for a real estate development loan. A big one." "How big?" $40 million. If your $20 million withdrawal causes the firm to default on their operating expenses, the bank can call in the entire loan." I looked at Mick, who was watching my face with the expression of someone who'd seen this movie before. "What kind of real estate development?" "Luxury condos on the waterfront. The kind of project that looks great on paper but has a nasty habit of bankrupting everyone involved when the market shifts." I thanked David and hung up. Mick was already pouring me something stronger than beer. "Let me guess," he said. "Your wife's boyfriend has been playing with other people's money again." "It looks that way." "So what are you going to do about it?" I stared into the amber liquid, watching the ice cubes slowly melt. Clara had always been ambitious, but I'd thought she was smarter than this. Apparently, good sex could make even a judge's daughter forget basic due diligence. "I'm going to let him hang himself," I said finally. "But first, I need to know everything about Victor Cross and his business dealings." Mick grinned. "Now you're talking. I know just the person to help you dig up that dirt." Margo Kellerman had the kind of face that made people want to confess their sins. Sharp cheekbones, knowing eyes, and a smile that suggested she'd heard every lie in the book and invented a few of her own. She'd been an investigative reporter for the Portland Press-Herald until budget cuts forced her into private investigation work. Now she specialized in divorce cases and corporate fraud, which made her perfect for my situation. "Your wife has terrible taste in men," she said, sliding a manila folder across the table of the coffee shop where we'd met. "Present company excluded, of course." I opened the folder and immediately understood why Margo commanded top dollar for her services. Victor Cross's entire life was laid out in meticulous detail. Credit reports, employment history, court filings, even photos of him with previous business partners. "Victor Cross isn't even his real name," Margo continued, sipping her latte like she was discussing the weather. "He was born Vincent Kowalski in Buffalo, changed his name after a bankruptcy in New York wiped out his first development company." The photos showed Victor with a series of attractive, successful women, a real estate agent in Syracuse, a marketing executive in Albany, a restaurant owner in Rochester. The pattern was always the same: initial partnership, rapid expansion, sudden collapse, and Victor's mysterious disappearance just before the lawsuits started flying. "He's got a system," Margo explained. "Find a woman with money and connections, seduce her into a business partnership, use her assets as collateral for increasingly risky ventures, then vanish when everything falls apart. He's been running this con for almost a decade." "What about the women?" Bankrupted, disgraced, sometimes criminally charged as accomplices. Victor's very careful to make sure all the legal paperwork has their signatures on it, not his. I felt sick. Clara might be cheating on me, but she didn't deserve to be destroyed by a professional con man. How long does he usually take before he disappears? Depends on how much money he can extract. Based on the timeline and the size of your wife's assets, I'd say you've got maybe 2 weeks before he makes his exit. Unless something forces his hand sooner. Margot's smile turned predatory. Now you're thinking like a PI. What did you have in mind? I told her about the $20 million withdrawal and the collateral loan. Her eyebrows rose appreciatively. That's going to cause some serious panic. Victor's probably scrambling right now to figure out how to cover the shortfall. She leaned forward. You know, there might be a way to accelerate his timeline. I'm listening. Victor's got a meeting tomorrow night with potential investors for his waterfront project, high-net-worth individuals who don't know about his history. If someone were to provide those investors with some interesting background information, the deal would collapse, and Victor would be left holding the bag for a $40 million loan with no way to pay it back. Margo finished her latte. Of course, that would also mean your wife's law firm would be in serious trouble. I thought about Clara's laughter at the gala, the way she'd looked at Victor like he was her salvation instead of her destruction. Clara made her choice. Now she gets to live with the consequences. Cold, Margo said approvingly. I like that in a client. There's just one more thing you should know. She pulled out another photo, this one showing Victor with Sam Dale in what looked like an intimate conversation at an upscale restaurant. Your wife's best friend has been feeding Victor inside information about the firm's finances and client list. She's not just a friend, she's an accomplice. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Sam had been in our wedding, had eaten dinner at our table countless times, had pretended to care about our marriage while secretly helping to destroy it. How long? At least 3 months. She's been getting paid for the information, cash deposits that she probably thinks are untraceable. I stared at the photo, remembering Sam's smug smile at the gala, the way she'd practically gloated about Clara's affair. She'd been enjoying my humiliation because she was part of the plan. I want everything, I said. Bank records, phone logs, meeting locations. If Sam Dale is going to help destroy my marriage, I'm going to make sure she pays for it. Margo gathered up the photos and documents. This is going to get ugly, Ethan. Are you sure you're ready for that? I thought about Clara's secret phone, about Victor's predatory smile, about Sam's calculated cruelty. They'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. While I'd been working to build our future, they'd been scheming to steal it. They started this war, I said. I'm just going to finish it. Tuesday morning arrived with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. I was in my kitchen, pretending to read the newspaper while Clara rushed around getting ready for what she thought would be just another day at her successful new law firm. I might be late again tonight, she said, not meeting my eyes as she grabbed her coffee. We're preparing for a big presentation. The waterfront development project? She froze, her hand halfway to her purse. How did you... what makes you think that? Lucky guess. I turned the page of my newspaper, keeping my voice casual. Seems like a risky investment in this market. Victor knows what he's doing. The way she said his name, with a mixture of defensiveness and something that might have been love, made my stomach turn. She was protecting him, even now. I'm sure he does, I said. Clara left without kissing me goodbye, a habit she'd abandoned months ago without explanation. Now I knew why. I waited exactly 30 minutes before making my move. Harrington and Cross occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming downtown office building, all glass and steel and the kind of architectural arrogance that screamed success. The lobby was busy with the usual mix of lawyers, clients, and support staff rushing to look important. I took the elevator to the 15th floor, where Clara's corner office overlooked the harbor. The receptionist, a young woman who clearly didn't recognize me as the senior partner's husband, tried to intercept me. I'm sorry, sir, but Ms. Harrington is in a meeting. That's Mrs. Parrish, I corrected, walking past her. And I'm her husband. Clara's office door was closed, but I could hear voices inside. I didn't bother knocking. Clara was seated at her desk, Victor standing behind her with his hand on her shoulder in a gesture that was supposedly professional, but fooled no one. Sam was in one of the client chairs, a stack of financial documents spread in front of her. They all looked up when I entered, and the guilt on their faces was almost comical. Ethan! Clara jumped up, her cheeks flushing. What are you doing here? Thought I'd stop by and see how my investment is performing. I looked around the office, taking in the expensive furniture, the original artwork, the view that probably cost extra. Nice setup. Very impressive. Victor stepped forward with his practiced smile. Mr. Parrish, good to see you again. Clara's told me so much about you. I bet she has. I moved closer, close enough that Victor had to take a step back. Funny thing about investments, Victor. Sometimes they don't perform the way you expect. I'm sorry? My lawyer called this morning. Seems there was some confusion about my contribution to the firm. $20 million is a lot of money to have tied up in someone else's business venture. The color drained from Clara's face. What are you talking about? I'm talking about pulling my investment. All of it. Effective immediately. The silence that followed was deafening. Sam's mouth fell open. Victor looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. Clara just stared at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Pure, undiluted panic. You can't do that, Clara said finally. We have contracts, obligations, which you should be able to meet with your other funding sources. I looked directly at Victor. You do have other funding sources, don't you? Victor's smile had disappeared entirely. Mr. Parrish, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. No misunderstanding. I'm simply reallocating my assets. Surely a successful businessman like yourself can appreciate sound financial planning. I turned to Sam, who was trying to make herself invisible in her chair. Sam, you've been so helpful with the firm's financial planning. I'm sure you can explain to Clara how this works. Sam's face went white. She knew that I knew. I should go, she mumbled, gathering up her papers with shaking hands. Good idea, I said. In fact, maybe you should start updating your resume. I have a feeling the job market is about to get very competitive. After Sam fled, I turned back to Clara and Victor. They were standing close together now, a united front against the threat I represented. 20 years of marriage, Clara said, her voice shaking with anger. And this is how you handle a disagreement? By destroying everything I've worked for? Everything you've worked for? I laughed, and the sound was harsh even to my own ears. Clara, I funded this entire operation. The office lease, the equipment, the staff salaries, all of it came from my money. Money I earned while you were playing house with your business partner. Victor stepped forward. Now wait just a minute. No, you wait. I moved closer to him, close enough to see the fear in his eyes. I know exactly who you are, Vincent Kowalski. I know about Syracuse, Albany, Rochester. I know about the women you've destroyed and the money you've stolen. Victor's face went ashen. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of Margo's photos, Victor with the restaurant owner from Rochester, taken just before her business collapsed. Funny how you keep ending up in business with women who lose everything right after you disappear. Clara was looking between us with growing confusion. What is he talking about, Victor? But Victor was already backing toward the door. This is harassment. I'm calling security. Go ahead, I said. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your real estate development loan. The one that's collateralized against this firm? The one that's about to go into default because of my withdrawal. Victor bolted. I turned back to Clara, who was standing behind her desk like it could protect her from what was happening. 15 years, I said quietly. 15 years I supported your dreams, your ambitions, your career. And this is how you repay me? By sleeping with a con man who's going to destroy everything you've built? Ethan, please. The money's gone, Clara. The loan is going to default. And when it does, you're going to lose everything. I headed for the door, then paused. But hey, at least you'll still have Victor, assuming he doesn't disappear like he did with all the others. I left her standing there, surrounded by the wreckage of her perfect new life. Everything's falling into place faster than Clara's last Botox injection. By Thursday morning, the panic had set in. I could see it in Clara's face when she thought I wasn't looking, in the way she clutched her phone like a lifeline, in the dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. She was trying to save her sinking ship, but the damage was already done. Margo had done her job perfectly. Victor's potential investors had received very detailed information about his background, complete with photos and court documents. The waterfront development deal had collapsed overnight, leaving Victor holding a $40 million loan with no way to pay it back. I was in my home office when my phone rang. Sam Dale's name appeared on the screen. Hello, Sam. Ethan, we need to talk. Her voice was shaking. I know you're angry, but Clara doesn't deserve this. She loves you. Funny way of showing it. She made a mistake. People make mistakes. That doesn't mean you should destroy her entire life. I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the desperation in her voice. Sam, let me ask you something. How much did Victor pay you for the inside information? The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. I don't know what you're talking about, she said finally. $5,000. deposited in your personal account over the past 3 months. Very sloppy, Sam. If you're going to commit corporate espionage, you should probably use a more sophisticated payment method. Ethan, here's what's going to happen. You're going to resign from Harrington and Cross. Today. And you're going to stay away from my wife, because if I see you anywhere near Clara, I'm going to make sure the State Bar Association learns about your little side business. I hung up before she could respond. An hour later, Margo called. Victor's on the move, she said. Packed up his office this morning and told his secretary he was taking an extended business trip. Classic exit strategy. What about Clara? Still at the office, trying to keep the firm afloat. She's been on the phone with banks all morning, trying to negotiate extensions on the loan payments. I felt a brief stab of something that might have been guilt. Clara was fighting for her dream, even as it crumbled around her, but then I remembered the photos on her secret phone, the lies, the months of deception. Any luck? Not with her credit history and Victor's reputation attached to the loan. The bank wants their money back, and they want it now. How long does she have? Maybe a week before they start foreclosure proceedings. Less if Victor's disappearance becomes public knowledge. I thanked Margo and hung up. Through my office window, I could see the harbor where Victor's luxury condos were supposed to rise. The construction site was already abandoned, just another Portland development dream that had turned into a nightmare. My phone buzzed with a text from Clara. We need to talk. Tonight. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Your office. 8 o'clock. It was time for the final confrontation. That evening, I walked through the empty corridors of Harrington and Cross like a ghost haunting the scene of his own murder. Most of the staff had gone home, but the lights were still on in Clara's office. She was sitting at her desk, staring at a stack of legal documents. She looked up when I entered, and I was shocked by how much she'd aged in just a few days. The confident, successful lawyer from the gala had been replaced by someone who looked defeated and desperate. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. You said we needed to talk. Victor's gone. She said it like she was admitting to a terminal illness. Left this morning without a word. His phone goes straight to voicemail. I'm shocked. Clara flinched at my sarcasm. You knew this would happen. That I knew exactly what would happen. Victor Kowalski, that's his real name, by the way, has been running the same con for years. Find a successful woman, seduce her into a business partnership, use her assets as collateral, then disappear when everything collapses. You're lying. I pulled out my phone and showed her Margo's research. Photo after photo of Victor with other women, other failed businesses, other lives destroyed. Clara stared at the images with growing horror. This can't be real. It's all real, Clara. The bankruptcy in New York, the fraud charges in Syracuse, the pattern of abandoned partners. You weren't his first victim, and you won't be his last. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face as the full scope of her betrayal became clear. Not just her betrayal of our marriage, but Victor's betrayal of her trust. I loved him, she whispered. No, you loved the idea of him. The excitement, the adventure, the escape from your boring life with your boring husband. I sat down across from her. But love doesn't steal $20 million from your spouse to fund a con man's fantasy. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen, and now you have to live with the consequences. Clara looked up at me with something like hope in her eyes. The bank will accept a settlement. If you put the money back, we can save the firm. We can save everything. I almost laughed. Even now, facing complete ruin, she was still trying to manipulate me. Clara, do you remember what you said to me at our wedding? You promised to love, honor, and cherish me, for better or worse, in sickness and in health. Ethan, you broke those promises. You threw away 15 years of marriage for a con man who was planning to destroy you from the moment you met him. I stood up. So no, I'm not going to save your firm. I'm not going to save your reputation, and I'm not going to save you. Please, she begged. I'll do anything. I'll leave Victor. I'll make this right. Victor already left you, Clara, just like he left all the others. I headed for the door. You wanted excitement, adventure? Well, congratulations. Bankruptcy and disgrace should be quite an adventure. I left her there, crying over the wreckage of her dreams. The end came faster than even I had expected. By Monday morning, the story had broken in the Portland Press Herald. Local law firm collapses in multi-million-dollar fraud scandal. Margo had done her work well, feeding the story to her former colleagues with just enough detail to destroy what was left of Clara's reputation. The article painted a devastating picture: a respected judge's daughter seduced by a con man, a prestigious law firm used as a front for fraudulent real estate deals, millions of dollars in investor money vanished overnight. Clara's photo ran alongside Victor's, making them look like partners in crime rather than predator and victim. Judge Harrington's reputation, built over 30 years on the bench, crumbled in a single news cycle. The Judicial Ethics Committee announced an investigation into his family's business dealings. His political allies distanced themselves. His legacy was in ruins. I was reading the article for the third time when my doorbell rang. Clara stood on my doorstep, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her clothes were wrinkled, her makeup smeared, her hair unwashed. "They're saying I'm a criminal," she said without preamble. "Are you?" I signed the loan documents Victor gave me. I thought I was investing in our future. She laughed bitterly. Our future? God, I was so stupid. Yes, you were. She flinched but didn't argue. The FBI wants to interview me. They think I was part of Victor's scheme. Were you? I was sleeping with him while he robbed us blind. In the eyes of the law, that makes me complicit. She looked at me with desperate eyes. Ethan, I need a good lawyer. You need to take responsibility for your choices. I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed our marriage. But please, don't let them destroy my life. I studied her face, looking for any trace of the woman I'd fallen in love with 20 years ago. All I saw was a stranger who'd made a series of catastrophic decisions and was now facing the consequences. Your life was destroyed the moment you decided Victor Cross was more important than your marriage, I said. I didn't do this to you, Clara. You did it to yourself. So that's it? 15 years of marriage, and you're just going to watch me burn? You lit the match, I said. I'm just not going to put out the fire. She stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I deserve this. Yes, you do. Clara turned and walked away, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I watched her get into her car, the BMW I'd bought her for her birthday 2 years ago, and drive away. I knew I'd probably never see her again. That evening, I met Mick at his tavern for what felt like a celebration. The place was buzzing with gossip about the Harrington scandal, everyone eager to share their theories about how the mighty had fallen. So, what's next? Mick asked, sliding a beer across the bar. Divorce proceedings start next week. Clara's assets are frozen pending the FBI investigation, so it should be fairly straightforward. And after that, I thought about it. For months, I'd been consumed with revenge, with making Clara and Victor pay for their betrayal. Now that it was over, I felt strangely empty. I'm thinking about relocating, I said finally. Maybe somewhere warmer. Start over. Sounds like a plan. Mick raised his beer. To new beginnings? To justice served. We drank in comfortable silence, surrounded by the chatter of people who thought they knew the whole story but had no idea how deep the betrayal had run. 6 months later, I was sitting on a beach in Florida, reading about Clara's sentencing in the Portland paper. 3 years in federal prison for conspiracy to commit fraud. Judge Harrington had been forced to resign from the bench in disgrace. Sam Dale had lost her law license and was working as a paralegal in a small firm in Bangor. Victor Cross, or Vincent Kowalski, had never been found. He'd disappeared into whatever hole con men crawl into when their schemes collapse, probably already working on his next victim. I folded the newspaper and looked out at the ocean. The water was blue and clear, nothing like the gray harbor in Portland where Victor's fantasy condos were supposed to have risen. I'd bought a small house near the beach, nothing fancy but comfortable, peaceful. My phone rang. An unknown number with a main area code. Hello? Mr. Parrish? This is Detective Morrison with the Portland Police. We've arrested Vincent Kowalski in connection with your wife's case. We were wondering if you'd be willing to testify at his trial. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. No, thank you, Detective. I've said everything I need to say about that situation. Sir, your testimony could help ensure he gets the maximum sentence. Detective, some people dig their own graves. I'm not interested in helping them climb out. I hung up and deleted the number. Victor would face justice or he wouldn't, but either way, it was no longer my concern. I'd gotten my revenge, and it had been more complete than I'd ever imagined possible. Clara had lost her freedom, her career, her reputation, and her family's legacy. Victor had lost his perfect con and was facing decades in prison. Sam had lost her career and her credibility. Judge Harrington had lost everything he'd spent a lifetime building. And me? I'd lost a cheating wife and gained a new life. Standing up from my beach chair, I brushed the sand off my shorts and headed back to my house. I had dinner plans with my neighbor, a retired teacher named Margaret, who made the best key lime pie in Florida and had never heard of Judge Harrington or his disgraced daughter. As I walked up the path to my front door, I couldn't help but smile. Clara had wanted excitement and adventure. She'd gotten bankruptcy in federal prison instead. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people destroy themselves.